Greetings! Welcome once more to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back in time? I'm your host, your guide, your emperor here at the Empire, Cantus Naravan Dracovin. Welcome. It is time for us to go back to the past to learn about Magic the Gathering. For there are many cards and sets and products released that teach us of the various cards and things that have happened that have defined one of the most, influential, if not the influential, CCGs out there. So if you're ready to head back into the past, I can open up a time portal. But you are going to have to do something a little for me. Hey, if you're not subscribed over on YouTube, do that now. It really helps out. And let me know if today's little history jaunt, Modern Masters, was ever on your agenda. Ever own them? Ever play Modern? Let me know in the comments. Let's go. The past awaits. Let's head back to 2013. We've once again arrived in the wonderful year of 2013. So, Modern Masters. What is it? What can we say about it? Well, interestingly enough, it was the first set of the series of products in the Modern Masters series. It was unique in many ways because it was a booster-based compilation set that contained cards that were meant to be legal in Modern. And then any format that those cards would have been in also legal in. It was focused on Modern, but I guess, if you like Legacy, Vintage, honestly, though it's not as big right now, Commander would have been legal in those too. If those cards were legal in that format, yes. It was released in June 7th, 2013. There's a symbol. I don't know what those are supposed to be. It was a symbol. So, its designers and developers were the exact same team. It was Max McCall, Eric Lahr, Ryan Spain, Sean Main, and Aaron Forsyth, with an art direction by Jerry Jarvis, which is important because we did have a lot of old art, we had new, we'll talk about it. It had a lot of themes, a lot of mechanics, because it was spread between a lot of sets, it had a lot of different things to talk about. It was 229 cards. Not particularly huge set, but not particularly small set. 101 commons, 60 uncommons, 53 rares, and 15 mythic rares. Interesting enough, the code name it had for it, Picasso. Interesting little thing about idea about it. So several changes occurred. The first occur, which we can show off here, is a change in rarity. Yes, our good friends right here, the Auric Salvagers, weren't always rare. Yeah, they became rare. This 2/4 return artifact card with convert mana cost of 1 or less from your graveyard to your hand. Yeah, it got an upgrade. For better or for worse for the Salvagers. Interesting also enough, we had new art. Death Denied here is new art for the card. Not that the art wouldn't be used again, but returning X graveyard card, X creature cards from your graveyard to hand can be pretty good. And of course then, what about this one here? What about Bound in Silence? This is the first time it's in this card frame. Well, what do I mean by that? These are modern reprints. Why would it be in this card frame? Our good friends in the Time Spiral block had stuff that wasn't always in this card frame. So yes, Bound in Silence here, which technically also changed from an uncommon to a common. It was in the Future Sight version of it. So this is the first time it's in the proper, modern, basically card frame. The enchanted creature it can't attack or block. Now, this set was reprints. And these were reprints from 8th edition to Alara Reborn. That's an important part about here too, because 8th edition is kind of around the time that we start with the modern card frame. So that's where we're kind of focusing on it here. It is the modern format. But when we do have cards from 8th edition and other reprint series, like City of Brass here, which was originally Arabian Nights. Yeah, that's older than it, but it's been already printed in Modern as a reprint previously, so it's legal in Modern, and it's legal in Modern Masters. Got it? Great. A classic of, taps deals damage to you, but taps for any color. So yes, any card that was legal in the Modern format, or any formats where, so every card legal in Modern, and then legal in whatever format the original printing would have been legal in. So that's the thing to keep in mind. City of Brass, any format its 8th edition printing would have been legal in, its Modern Masters printing was also legal in. This is an important distinction in this entire thing you kind of have to keep in mind when we're talking about this here. The legality of these things. There is one more thing to talk about when we're over here, though, too. Because these are supposed to be good reprints to help the modern format, reintroduce those cards, basically needed reprints to keep prices down, which actually in some cases has worked. We'll talk about that. But also, not to throw these back into standard. That was the big thing here. This was a set that was meant to avoid standard. And they did a good job of not putting anything on from the banned list at the time in these reprints. It was booster based. Only boosters. There was no other products, no pre-constructed decks, nothing else, just boosters. 15 card playable packs with 10 commons, 3 uncommons, 1 mythic or rare, and then 1 foil card of any rarity. Because this was a set that had no basic lands whatsoever, you were guaranteed a foil card in every pack. Normally, you'd also have like basic lands and stuff like that. The 16 card boosters, which you can see here, featured art from Videlkin Shackles, Sword of Fire and Ice, and Dark Confidant. All of those were former rares turned mythics that were part of the mythic block of cards. So yes, these were all now mythics. The other thing to say about this here is price. Each of these packs was assumed to be more value because these are more valuable reprints. So they set the MSRP at $6.99 rather than at the time for most booster packs, $3.99. It was $3 more. There's an argument that, of course, it's, same price to print it, but again, it's the thing that Wizards does, and they don't want to really mess with the secondary market. They weren't trying to tank the secondary market. Keeping the price high keeps the secondary market, to a degree, high. Interesting kind of little tidbit when it kind of relates to this entire thing there. So, our booster box here contained 24 packs. Now, that's less than your average booster box we've kind of talked about in the past. But why is this still relevant? Well, 24 packs was what you needed for a draft. Yes, it would be 3 groups of boosters for 8 players. So I could give out 3 boosters to everybody. We could set up a draft. We could play it. It was a draft number. So you could draft this set. Once again, we'll look at our good change in rarity, and I do want to talk about this here. Most of the cards that when we talk about they're changed from rare to mythic rare, it's because mythic rarity wasn't introduced until the Alara block. That's pretty important to think about, that a lot of these modern cards, which are reprints now, mythic didn't exist. So things like the Sword of Fire and Ice here, yes, it's its first time printed in mythic, but because, honestly speaking, if mythic existed when it was originally out, it probably would have been. The swords are a mythic series if you look at any more that have come out post this time period. They each give, this one, of course, is the standard. It gives +2/+2. This one's protection from red and blue. Each of them is 2 colors. Its special ability when equipped is it deals combat damage to player, it deals 2 damage to target creature or player, and you draw a card. So, Sword of Fire and Ice, not the most powerful of the swords, but still pretty good. I mean, you're giving a little boost, smack a player, do 2 extra damage to a target, and get a card. Not bad. I definitely always see it very helpful. And again, this is also, these mythics both got this, and some of them also got new artwork. So it's like we got the change of rarities, we got some new artwork, we got a lot of things like that. So, the set itself, only printed in English. So, though it was a worldwide distribution, it was only in English. We see a lot of sets that have been in multiple languages and have been up until now, but yeah. This, though, which I'm showing with this, is something that was marketed with this as probably a secondary product related to it. Sleeves and a card box. Thanks, Ultra Pro. You gave us something Modern Masters beyond this, the cards and the set and the boosters, and that's sleeves in a deck box. Guess if you want to get into Modern, it might be a way to show off, hey, I'm supporting Modern. Hi, Joyra. There was a story here. Yes, you can look it up. Back in 2013, in May, on the 29th, they had one of the Magic stories that was supposed to be related to Modern Masters, and I guess what was going on in it? Preparation. Set in Dominaria, written by Nick Davison, featuring Joyra and Grell. It was supposed to be related to Modern Masters. It was the story during that time period. It's Mark. He connected to it. It's the only one we got that kind of tells a story to this set. There really isn't one, but we kind of have it. It's that funny thing of, like, they kind of told a story. But you can still look up if you look up preparation. I'll just say, you have to look it up manually. The link doesn't work very well from the fandom page. All right. Now, there were tokens, which is interesting because most of these tokens were reprints. That makes sense. A lot of these cards are reprinted. But 3 of the tokens and the emblem, as we show it, were all new. Yes. Of the 15 tokens they had, 3 didn't have tokens before, including this 2/4 Reach Black Spider. It was the opposite of Penumbra Spider, and this is the first time printing it. Similarly, Elspeth Knight Errant, which we'll talk about, and it's a reprint, again, because it's the entire reprint set. This is the first time getting her emblem. She didn't have an emblem before. She was printed without it. This was the last time she was printed. It was pre-emblems. So now we have her with emblem for the first time. So these are 4 new token-based things we are getting. And remember, it's a 16-card pack, and I basically accounted for only 15 of them. 16th is the token. So, yes, you're getting a token guaranteed with this. Let's talk mechanics. Why? Because there was a billion themes and mechanics for probably a lot of the different Modern decks at the time, and things like that. You know, a lot of... Again, this was a curated set of Modern cards. So I'm going to go through the list, and a lot of these probably relate to some Modern deck or another. Let's talk mechanics we reintroduced here. We'll start with Fiery Fall. The good old Fiery Fall here. What's important about it? It's got basic land cycling. It does 5 damage or basic land cycle it. Nothing major, but it's there. There's a big cycling kind of thing that kind of exists there, but also doesn't in basic land cycling. Brought back. High basic land cycling. Similarly enough, we have Entwine. Entwine's kind of back in here a little bit, where you choose one, and in this case it would be creatures you control get +2/+2, or until end of turn, creatures you control gain whenever they deal damage, you gain that much life, both until end of turn, or you can Entwine it to do both. Invoke. You may cast a spell for some invoke cost and then sacrifice it when it enters the battlefield. This 4/3 that's more expensive for the invoke, basically I can get a 4/3 flying, or I can invoke it, because when it leaves the battlefield, up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less, from your graveyard to the battlefield. Again, that's power-based, meaning it doesn't mean how powerful the card is, how expensive the card is. And yes, you can just have it die some other way, but you can invoke it to force the point for 1 more mana. Affinity. Hello, affinity for artifacts. We had a little bit of that there too. Our Frogmite, who's a 2/2, and the more artifacts you have, cheaper it costs. Down to 0. Changelings. A bunch of Changeling reprints. The 2/2 flying Changeling here is just an example of that. Delve came back here. Hi, Delve. The flying 5/5 demon here, the Tombstalker, is you exile any number of cards and make it cheaper to cast it. You delve. You can exile, let's say, and it's colorless mana. I can delve 6 cards and make it 2 black to get a 5/5 flying. Domain. We saw a bunch of it here. There's a bunch of cards that involve that, and that's the It's until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample and +1/+1 for each basic land type amongst your basic land types. That's domain. The more basic land types you have, the more bonus you get with domain. Tromp the domains. We got Dredge, another graveyard ability. Yes, you can see we had two. We had Delve and Dredge, and they're both graveyard based. Return up to 3 target land cards from your graveyard to your hand, and if you would draw a card, you can put exactly 3 cards from your library into your graveyard, and then return this Life from the Loam from your graveyard to your hand instead. Or you can still just draw a card. It gives you the option of milling your deck 3, in this case, because Dredge 3, to get this card back your hand in place of it. It turns out the 2 graveyard things work with each other. I'm just saying. Echo, 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 where you do have to pay cost, or it leaves battlefield. In this case, the Mog War Marshal. I like it. It's a goblin. It's a 1/1 for 2 mana that you get a 1/1 red goblin token, but also you could just not pay its echo cost and get another one. And if you're playing red-black, like I do, with goblins, you just bring it back and you just get more tokens. Vertaloth, he's got Kicker. Hey, Kicker. Kicker's a big one. It's always been pretty popular. He boosts Saplings and Tree Folks, and if you kick him, you get a bunch of 1/1 Saplings for how much you kicked him. Modular has a little bit of a thing in here where it comes into play with a number of +1/+1 counters equal to its modular. In this case, you can sacrifice an artifact to put that on it. But also with its modular, when these things die, you get to put those +1/+1 counters on another artifact creature. So yeah, you can maybe make artifact tokens, sacrifice some of the +1/+1 counters to the Ravager, and then eventually when this thing dies, put all those tokens on another artifact creature. We had Persist with the Kitchen Finks. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life, and when this creature dies with Persist, it comes back with a -1/-1 counter. If it has that, it doesn't come back. Basically, you get 1 extra life, but it's a little smaller. We got Prowl, making its return. You may cast this card for its Prowl cost if you dealt combat damage to a player with a Goblin or a Rogue. Kind of a little bit of the ninjutsu kind of stuff, but a little different because you have to hit someone with a Goblin or a Rogue. Specific, kin. And when this enters the battlefield, if its Prowl cost was paid, you search your opponent's library for 3 cards and exile them. So yeah, you just hit someone with a Goblin, and then you can Prowl in this and get rid of some cards from their library. Mean. We got Retrace. This one here, Siphon Life. Target player loses 2 life, you gain 2. And you may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a land card in addition to paying its cost. So yes, I can keep discarding lands if I have enough lands that I don't need anymore, or I have a way to get back lands to keep casting Siphon Life. Retrace it. Split into Arcane was a back thing, which is a weird, interesting thing. Basically, this does 2 damage to a target, but with Splice into Arcane, as you cast an Arcane spell, this is an Arcane spell, you reveal this card from your hand, pay its Splice costs, and add this 2 damage to it. So you can keep this in your hand, and the more Arcane casts, you can kind of add this to it and keep it going. Of course, we had Split Second, which, as long as it's cast, basically, as long as it's on the stack, players can't cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Yeah, it's just, you couldn't counter this. Or do anything in response to it that aren't mana abilities. That's Corrosive Grip. Etched Oracle has Sunburst, which is fancy Domain. It's sort of like Domain. I think it's a very similar kind of things. Domain, you have to have a certain basic lands. This one here, it's based on how the different manas you spent. That's what Sunburst is. It enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter for each mana that was spent to cast it. So you spend 4 different color manas, it's a 4/4. And you want to put more +1/+1 counters on it because you can move 4 +1/+1 counters on it to draw 3 cards. Keep pumping it up. Suspend. Back to that time spiral block that I mentioned. This one has a suspend of 3 for 0, meaning you can just cast it for free. You're going to have to suspend it. The lowest boss doesn't have a mana cost, but you can tap the sacrifice to add 3 mana. It's kind of Black Lotus, except it takes you 3 turns before it comes into play. We had artifacts. Beyond just the artifacts with abilities, there was an artifact theme to the deck. Esperzoa shows that off here. A 4/4 flying that, at the beginning of upkeep, return artifact you control to its owner's hand. If you have an artifact with a very powerful come into play effect, yeah, you keep bouncing it and replaying it. We had fairies! Hi, fairies. Shutter Spite's a good example of them, a flash flying, and when it enters the battlefield, because it's got flash, counter target spell with the converted mana cost of X or less, where X is the number of fairies you control. So it's a kin / tribal ability of fairies. We had goblins. Hey, hi Squee. I like Squee. And beginning of upkeep, you can return him from your graveyard to your hand. He's pretty simple. He's basically, you can get him back every turn and have him die every turn. We had Storm. Yes, everybody's both favorite and not favorite Storm. This one, as a Storm spell, deals 1 damage target creature or player. And when you cast a spell that has Storm with it, you copy it for each spell that was casted before this turn, and choose new targets for the copies. Yes, because it's this turn, if I wait till after combat, I play a bunch of spells, my opponents play a bunch of spells, let's say like 10 spells get cost, I storm this thing for 10 times. Yes. And with it, an 11th spell. Yeah, it's the 11th spell, I cast it 11 times. Because the storm copies it for each other spell cast. Storm spells are fun. Especially if you can cast a lot of spells. And copy a lot of spells, because there's a lot of spells happening. We had Thalids. Yeah, I know. Thalids? Really? There were some interesting Thalids that happened in the modern era, so I can understand us getting a Thalid kind of theme here. It still is a little weird, because this is like Fallen Empire's level of stuff. Anyway, the Spore Scorer Thalid here at the beginning of upkeep, gets a Spore counter, and has removed 3 Spore counters from it, put a sapling into play. Oh no, at the beginning of upkeep, put a Spore counter on each fungus you control. So he basically not only gets Spore counters, but gives extra Spore counters to all your other funguses. If you have a bunch of them, you're putting out a lot of saplings very fast. We did have a token theme, with good old Skeleton Vampire here being a really good example of it. When he enters the battlefield, you get 2 1/1 flying black bat tokens. Those were also new tokens. And you can sacrifice a bat to add 2 bats tokens into play. And also sacrifice back to sacrifice it. So yeah, you get 2 tokens, you can sacrifice 1 to get 2, or just sacrifice other bats to get more. He's an expensive way of getting more bats, but if you have stuff that when things would die, you're not going to matter. You get more tokens and have your triggers. Rebels was a thing. Yes, Rebels. Hello, Mercadian Masks. Wasn't expecting you. Our good old Armor Scout here, which is search your library for Rebel permanent card with a converted mana cost of 3 or less, put it in the battlefield, shuffle your library. Yeah, Rebels. And of course, we had graveyard-related things. I think this is an important one to talk about because, yes, we've been talking about graveyard stuff in general. Bridge from below here is a graveyard-related stuff that whenever a non-token creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, if this is in your grave, you get a 2/2 zombie. But if creatures put in your opponent's graveyard, this gets exiled. So it's like an enchantment you want in your graveyard, and that's weird. It also has new art too, which is kind of nice. But yes, graveyard matters were a thing in this set on top of all that. But also, we cannot forget another tribal / kin, giants. We had a giant theme in here. It's interesting which of the Lorwyn / Shadowmoor tribes actually showed up, because a lot of them did, not all of them. Interesting. I'm guessing it's which ones were popular in Modern at the time and which ones were standout more. Anyway, Thundercloud Shaman here enters the battlefield, deals damage equal to the number of giants you control to each non-giant creature. You want to have a lot of giants. It's a lot of big creatures. We had, of course, with an arcane spell, Ramp. There was a bunch of Ramp cards in this because, hey, Ramp's popular. Any place you have it, it's popular. So, of course, it's popular in Modern. Code of the Reach searches for 2 basic lands, reveals them, puts 1 in the hand, and the other in the battlefield tapped. Code of Reach is pretty good for when it comes to Ramp, then, too. Anyway, those were kind of all the themes and mechanics the set had. So, yeah. There were also 2 cycles. Actually, 2 cycles. So, The 5/5 dragons from the Kamigawa block, the rare dragons at the time, now mythic, that all cost 6, all have flying, all have an ability to come in the graveyard, all got reprinted. So these were all in champions. We're getting all a reprint of them. Rusei here, again, a 5/5 flying for 6 mana. When it dies, deals 5 damage to each creature without flying. It nukes all non-flyers. Also, we had the Vivid lands. Vivid Creek here is just an example. These are uncommon lands. They come into play tapped. They tap for a blue, and they get charge counters that you can remove to basically use for any color mana. They're not great, but they were here, and because we didn't have a lot of other types of land that would tap for any color, we had the Vivid lands. They were fine and uncommon. They're not great. They're not the worst. So yeah. It's got a rainbow and a pretty standard color-related thing in all of these. So there's a rainbow in all the art too here, very cutely. I'm not going to get all the rarity changes. There are a lot. I've talked about a few. I've talked about some of the ones that were uncommon and now rare. But there were commons that became uncommon. Uncommons that became common. Thanks, that Popper loves that. Rares that became uncommon. They weren't that good. And of course, the rares that became mythics. This is the start of me talking about them, and I've got to talk about them for a minute here with Vidalian Click, because there were 3 cards, because I remember, at the time, that were very expensive. This was the least of them. They're all relatively reasonable price now, between $5 to $10. All 3 of them. They've all lost that huge value of $50+ they were at the time. Yeah! You can see how they're still not cheap, but also, you know, changes in the format make sure they're not in the various formats mean they're not as popular anymore, which also drives down the price. But having available prints also does that too. That 2 combined things make sure that they still have some price, but they're not nothing. The Valiant Click here, a flash flying. Why is it important? Well, it's whenever it enters the battlefield, look at target player's hand, choose a non-land card from it. If you do, that player reveals the chosen card, puts it at the bottom of his or her library, then draws a card. You get rid of something from their hand and put it on the bottom of your library. That's it. Pretty good. Not insane, but pretty good. The other 2 cards. Tarmogoyf. Hello, Tarmogoyf. So, this is at one point the most expensive card that was in the modern format. It was the most desired for reprints, and it was a mythic rare. This is new art in the new card frame, because it wasn't a future shifted card frame. Hey, remember when I talked about it being in, it was in good old Future Sight, and this is the first reprint from it. This is like still like a $10 card, but it was like $100 at the time. Power toughness equal to the number of card types among cards in all graveyards, and its toughness equal to that number +1. There were decks that used it. It was big for a reason. Not so much now, but, you know, the format's changed, but we had Tarmogoyf. And number 3, the one in between Vidalian Click and Tarmogoyf, Dark Confidant. Dark Confidant, a card designed by Bob Maher, a staple in both Modern and Legacy. Probably still is today, I honestly have to say. It was originally printed in Ravnica, and this is new art, now mythic, also. Again, I think all the mythics were formerly rare, or most of them at least were. I think something to keep in mind. Our good friend Dark Confidant here, I think you have to keep the top card of your library, put in your hand, lose life equal to its mana value. Yes. Can hurt you a lot, but you can get a lot of cards in your hand very quickly. It's like an extra card draw at a price that maybe you're willing to play. There are reasons to do that. So you can see, I can see this also having played a lot of places in like Commander too. I'm just saying, it has its places, Dark Confidant. And that's why it was pretty pricey. Again, now it's down to that $5 to $10 range. Also, it's joined Tarmogoyf and Vidalian Click being down there. Those were the 3 big money cards that were in this set at the time. Things change. Now, there were other cards that I do want to talk about before we end today, just to go over some of the cards that were in this set you might have been interested in. Academy Ruins. Legendary land, taps for colorless, but you can also use it to put an artifact card from your graveyard on the top of your library. Not the most powerful. It's not Tolarian Academy. That's an insanity, and that's a reason. There's reasons it's like never been printed again. But still, can be powerful in certain circumstances, especially if ways of drawing a card. And maybe it's something that you can sacrifice for an effect and win it back. Oops, I did Arcbound Ravager a second time. That's on me. And I did Auric Savages a second time. 2 for 2. Man, I accidentally did a couple extra that I already talked about. Whoops. Blink Moth Nexus. Taps for a colorless or becomes a flying Blink Moth creature until end of turn. You can also use it to boost a Blink Moth creature. Blood Moon. Non-basic lands or mountains. You don't play with non-basic lands. Well, sorry. Cold-Eyed Selkie. A 1/1 Island Walk. When it deals damage to combat damage to a player, you may draw that many cards. That card has 1, but if you can boost it, turn things to islands, that would be a bunch of cards. Of course, Cryptic Command, where you choose 2 of these choices, countering a spell, returning a permanent to its owner's hand, or tap all creatures your opponent controls, or draw a card. 4 choices, choose 2. Doubling Season. Doubling Season was reprinted here. I don't know if I have to say a lot about Doubling Season. It is infamous. It's there. If you would get tokens, get twice those tokens. If you get counters on a permanent, get twice those counters. Yeah, Doubling Season. It is actually doubling tokens, doubling counters. And that's not just creature tokens, too. Keep that in mind. So things like nowadays, where you have food tokens, map tokens, clue tokens, blood tokens, you get double those also. Token creatures was the big part of it. There's a lot more tokens nowadays that you can double. Doubling Season. Still pretty good. Dragonstorm. I wasn't going to mention... I didn't want with the Storm card, but I wanted to mention this one because it's silly and expensive. And if you can pull it off, fun. It's 9 mana card with Storm. Search your library for Dragon Permanent, put it in the battlefield. Expensive, but if you have a lot of mana and can get a bunch of spells out, especially a lot of cheap spells, and just all of a sudden Dragonstorm and have I have 6 giant dragons on the battlefield. Enjoy. Hello, Elspeth! So, our Planeswalker friend with her Emblem, she ticks up to put a 1/1 white soldier creature into the battlefield. Also ticks up to give a creature +3/+3 and flying at end of turn. She starts at 4. If you can get her to 8 or above, you can tick her down to get an Emblem where your artifacts, creatures, enchantments, and lands are indestructible. Pretty powerful, hard to get to, not the best, but the indestructible can be good if you can pull it off. Empty the Warrens. I like goblins. I wanted to talk about this one. My favorite deck is my Zoblin deck. I think I've talked about this one. It's Storm. You get 2 1/1 red goblins. I've said. Aethersworn Canonist. Each player who has cast a non-artifact creature this turn can't cast additional non-artifact spells. Yes. Only 1 non-artifact spell a turn. Figure of Destiny. I just love this little guy. He starts as a 1/1. For 1 red or white, he becomes a 2/2. If he's a 2/2, a spirit that's also a Kithkin, you can spend 3 mana to make him 4/4 warrior, spirit Kithkin. If he's a warrior, you can spend 6 mana to make him an 8/8 Kithkin spirit warrior avatar with flying and first strike. I love this little dude. He's silly. Grand Arbiter Augustus the Fourth. He's mean. He's very mean. Your white spells cast 1 less. Your blue spells cost 1 less. Spells your opponents cast cost 1 more. Thank you, Grand Arbiter. Hey, Joyra! We talked about how you were in the story of this set. You got a reprint here, too. Joyra the Gitu. For 2, exile an online card from your hand, put 4 time counters on it, it gains Suspend. Yeah, you can just suspend things for 4. There are things that remove time counters also that exist technically. That's an entire thing, but, you know, just still, you can basically set up a bunch of stuff for cheap. Because it gets cast without paying its mana cost. Well, I think I'll exile Emrakul for 2. In 4 turns, I get an Emrakul. I'll cast it. Gets haste. Because it says, with suspend, it gets cast. You get an extra turn. You see it coming. Can you do something about it? Jugan, the Rising Star, another one of the dragons. I didn't talk about all the dragons because I don't love all the dragons, but I do like Jugan here too. When he dies, you get 5 1/1 +1/+1 counters on any number distributed amongst any number of target creatures. I kind of like that one. It's not bad. Of course, though, Kiki Jiki gets a reprint here. The 2/2 haste that taps to put a token copy of target non-legendary creature onto the battlefield. It gets haste, you sacrifice it. Kiki Jiki, the Mirror Breaker, is mean that way. Wonderful, mean. He copies stuff. I love him. Kira, the Great Glass Spinner. Kira. Yeah, a 2/2 flyer. Its ability is what's really mean here. Creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes a target of a spell or ability for the first time this turn, counter that spell or ability. If I don't have anything that targets my own creatures, and I have Kira out, well, anything my opponents have that target my creatures, first one gets countered. They have to do 2 to have an effect. Thanks, Kira. The Knight of Reliquary! It gets +1/+1 for each land card in your graveyard, and you can sacrifice a forest or plains to search for a land and put it in the battlefield. You can cycle lands out from your deck, which actually could be very powerful, because if you have the amount of lands you need, you can thin the forests and plains from your deck, but it's also searching for any land card. Meaning I can sacrifice a forest or plains, also don't need to be basic, to find strategic land cards. Oh, do I need my, powerful legendary land? I can search for it. And also it gets bigger then too. Kusha, the Evening Star. Is this my favorite of the dragons? It might be my favorite of the dragons. Because when it dies, each opponent loses 5 life, and you gain life equal to it that way. And heights. I feel like it's very good in Commander, in a lot of ways. You want Kusho to die. You want all your opponents to lose a lot of life, and you gain that life. Lightning Helix, it's a classic in a lot of ways, but I like talking about it. It deals 3 damage to target. You gain 3 life for 2 mana. Not bad. It's a Lightning Bolt and a Healing Salve together. You do damage, you gain life. Ona. Ona, I love in blue-black decks. She's a 5/5 flyer that for X and a blue/black, you choose a color, target opponent exiles the top X cards of his or her library. Exiles. It is milling with Ona, but exiling it. For each card of the chosen color, hey, I know my opponent's colors in their deck, you get a 1/1 blue-black fairy rogue with fly. Ona's mean, but I love her. Pact of Negation. It costs 0 to cast. It counters target spell. But you have to pay some mana or lose the game on your next turn. Next upkeep. So, it's a gamble. Path to Exile, the classic, exiling target creature and its controller gets a basic land card into the battlefield tapped. For 1 mana, too. So, I mean, yeah, your opponent gets a land, but you get rid of something very pesky. It's good that way. It's cheap, too. Hypergenitus. Look, any set you're printed in, I'm going to have to talk about the 10/10 protection from everything, that if it goes to graveyard from anywhere, you reveal it and put it into your, shuffle it in your library. I'm not going to lie, I'm going to have to talk to. Also, hey Joyra, I need you to suspend something for 4 turns. That way I don't have to pay 10 mana. Sarkam Vol, the other Planeswalker that was reprinted here. He's a 4 loyalty that ticks up for 1, and creatures you control get +1/+1 and haste until end of turn. Ticks down for him to steal a creature until end of turn. You untap it against haste, or tick it down 6 and you get 5 4/4 dragons with flying. Honestly speaking, his tick up's pretty good. His tick down can be pretty good strategically, and dragons, not bad. The Scion of Ona, another fairy. Why did I want to talk about this one? Because it's pretty good for the fairy kind of theme that I was talking about. Flash flying, a 1/1 that other fairies get +1/+1. Enshroud. The other combo of funguses that I wanted to talk about, the Sporloth Ancient, which gets a spore counter at your upkeep. But it gives creatures you control have remove 2 spore counters from this creature, put up 1/1 sapling. So yes, the one that gives you double spore counters each turn, combined with this one that gives all your creatures, whether they get spore counters or not, the ability to remove 2 spore counters to put a sapling into play. Yeah. The Stonehewer Giant, a Vigilance 4/4 that, well, for white and a colorless, search your library for an equipment card, put it onto the battlefield, attach it to creature control, shuffle your library. Hi, what's some powerful, like, really expensive equipment that have been out now? Was it like the Buster Sword or Masamune, or isn't the Colossal Hammer that costs 1 to play, but also like 12 to equip or something crazy, like 10 to equip or something, you know, something crazy like that. Hey, I put it on battlefield and attach it to a creature I control. Thanks, Stonehewer Giant. Summoner's Pack. Another one of those 0-cost ones where you have to pay mana on your next upkeep or lose the game. This one, instant speed, but you search your library for a green creature, reveal it, put in your hand. At the end of a turn, I could do that, and my next turn I pay for that. Yeah, it's got some uses. It's interesting. The other sword that was reprinted here, Sword of Light and Shadow. The 2/2 that gives white and black protection. When it reveals combat damage to a player, you gain 3 life, and you may return 1 creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Again, not the most powerful of the swords. Pretty good. Tooth and Nail. It costs you 7. You can entwine it for 9. Normally, you search your library for up to 2 creature cards, reveal them, put in your hand, then shuffle your library. And then the other thing is, choose 2 creature cards from your hand, put them onto the battlefield. Well, if I have 9 mana, I can search for 2, like, I don't know, 8 or 9 cost creatures, reveal them, put in my hand, oh, and then put them into the battlefield. Thanks, Tooth and Nail. Could be a big game changer. And finally, Vidalcan Shackles. You may choose not to untap it during your next untap step. And for 2, tap, gain control of target creature with power less than or equal to the number of islands you control for as long as Vidalcan Shackles remains tapped. Yes, if you got a lot of islands, you steal something. As long as you remain tapped, you keep it. Pretty interesting blue decks. Modern Masters. There you go. That's what I kind of have to say about it. This was a interesting set. And I'm not going to lie. This is over a decade ago. And I've never been big on the modern format, so I could not tell you how good or bad a lot of these reprints were for the modern format. I can point out the cards that I knew were expensive at the time. Tarmogoyf, Dark Confident, Vidalcan Click. I can point to these kind of things and say, yeah, there were reasons why these reprints were probably needed. And very high price to these cards. These were desired in many ways, and probably in many decks. The swords, well, they still can fetch pretty big prices at certain points in time and aren't bad. Fire and Ice is still pretty expensive, honestly, in comparison. It may have gained price for places that it can be used. But overall, it was an interesting product that wasn't bad. It was made in a time period where Magic was still playing around with keeping control of the secondary market. Again, Wizards will always confess they ignore the secondary market. We can see that they're paying attention to it. And this is one of those points where we can certainly see that. These were reprints that were helpful to Modern. Modern as a format is a big format now, if not for Modern Masters. Granted, Wizards really throws their support behind Standard and Commander as of the time of this recording, but it's not like they ignore Modern or some of the other formats. There's stuff that goes to them. They still use them in tournaments and stuff like that. They just don't print things directly for them. Print things directly for Commander at this point in time. But you can see that this was them making this format a thing, really. Throwing the support behind it with this and the entire Masters series, especially the Modern Masters series, to create the format that it is now and have the power and popularity it does have. When Wizards properly throws their weight behind something, they can create and foster the formats that we have now. Commander. We can see they can grow it properly and right. And this is a good example of that. Honestly, was it the best example? I can't say for sure. I don't have that reflection of how the competitive side of the format was at the time, but I think these were a very interesting set of cards, with probably a lot of popular cards, some probably that were just there to fill in the blanks, and a lot of interesting ideas that were explored in the modern format. But that will be it today. Hope you enjoyed. Please check out the rest of my stuff. You can join me live on Twitch or on YouTube, both great places. If you're on YouTube, hey, do remember subscribing, comments, all those things. But also remember, check out all the other stuff I do. Tabletop videos like this, live plays like Fall of Abenswald. That's my current one. Wednesdays at 8 if you're going live on Twitch. But there's other old ones there too. Discussing Tabletop, which is again also live over on Twitch Saturdays at 6. But that's my talk show, discussion show, kind of podcasty thing. Maybe it'll be an actual podcast one of these days. Check these out. Help support the channel. Basically, seeing other content. You can always again join me live, or you can always check out what's going on with me on my social media, especially my Discord. All right, everybody. I'm going to get going. Till the next time, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.